Oh, how we've missed this feeling. Welcome back to an episode of the Green and White podcast brought to you by Argyle Life. And at last, we can discuss a win in the Sky Bet Championship following yesterday's 3-2 victory over table topping Sunderland in front of a raucous and intense atmosphere at a full home park in the glorious Devon sunshine. I'm Joe. I'm your host for the next hour. I'm not going to promise it's going to be an hour because we've got so much to get through tonight. But we'll try as best we can to limit your Sunday evening viewing. I know some of you do like to watch some stuff on a Sunday night, so we'll try and keep you entertained for the next hour or so. Let's get through the usual housekeeping. As you can see below Sam, do like, comment, subscribe, join the conversation on all the various podcast platforms that we are a part of. If you aren't already following us or subscribed, then what are you doing? You should be doing it. To the right hand side, Argyle Life Shop. You can see the link there to the side. Do get involved. I think Aaron's working overtime at the moment to get some new stuff put on there. I've also just realised I've not got my glasses on, which is a good start. I don't know where they are. So we're going to roll without it. Hopefully, I'll be able to read what's on the screen as the evening progresses. Joining me this evening in triumphant mood are John, not John, John's not here. Sam, Ben, and Adam are all in attendance. This has started well, hasn't it? Do get your comments in, do get your questions in. We do have people who are going to be liking and starring the comments that I will be looking at throughout the program, and we will come to a Q&A session at the end, so do get them in. But without further ado, let's just crack on with it. I'm just going to open this up. It's a free for all. Take your pick. Argyle 3, Sunderland 2. Who wants to get cracking?
Oh, okay. Since everyone's being polite, I'll jump in. I thought, result aside, the result is great because it gets the monkey off the back with the 3 points for the first 3 points. It also gives breathing room for if we have, if we pick up no points over the next 2 or 3 games, it's not such a big issue. We stay in touch with the pack, as it were. Brilliant result. But regardless of the result, I thought it was a really good performance. I put in the group chat, Evening Sun. I put in the group chat that I thought the first half was possibly our best 45 minutes of football, and it raised a few eyebrows amongst some of those here, I know. But I just thought, although we didn't produce a great deal attackingly, we looked so much more secure defensively. I know JB on the ball, with the ball, really struggled in the first half. But I thought his defensive work, his dynamism, getting around with Randall was really good and gave us that solidity at the back, which we kind of really haven't been able to do, and gives me hope that we didn't bring any defensive midfielders in late in the window, but that we potentially have the players who can do that. I thought that we might be short there. I think the players demonstrated that they've got they've got the abilities to play this system, which I was doubting, and which I said publicly on here. I'm not sure we're equipped to play this system. I think that JB and Randall did really well there. Especially in the second half, but even in the first half, limiting Sunderland to not a great deal. Although they had a really great start, opening 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it was. I think Argyle really came back into the game. It was a pretty even game, although we didn't create any great chances. That's right, Sam. Up you get. It's not normal to see you that way. But also, against Stoke, we produced as many shots, etc. But we lamented that they weren't high quality chances. I thought, like, on the balance of play, it could have gone either way. It felt like a one goal separates the both teams kind of game. But I thought they were quality chances we produced. They were, in the box, even before. And again, this is what is the most exciting for me. Even before Al Hajj came on, it looked like we were creating things. I think that Barley Mumba looked back to his best. I thought Joe Edwards played out of his skin again. There's so many positives to take from the game. That's as an overview. And maybe I'll let some of the lads get into some of the flow of the game and the narrative of the game, because there was an awful lot of ebb and flow and the substitutions, etc., played into that. Some of the dodgy refereeing decisions played into that. Morgan Whittaker, I don't think, deserved his yellow card. I mean, it was a long way away from me in block 2, but that sort of put him on a knife edge.
Let's not bring ref watch in too early, Ben.
I know we've got some curious views to discuss on certain decisions later on. But yeah, I mean, I'll let some of the lads get into the details. But I thought even if we hadn't have won, that was by far the most promising performance. Even before Al Hajj came on, we were sort of much more incisive. And defensively, we looked like something had clicked. I think JB's coming back to fitness, which is helping him. He settled into the second half better. Really, really good display, and more of that. And we should do really well. And Rooney deserves a lot of credit for that. The players deserve a lot of credit for that. Clearly a good spirit in the camp. So yeah, lots of positives to take. And obviously that it shouldn't be discounted who the performance was against. I think that we did really well to stymie a lot of their output, considering how they've torn teams apart over the start of the season. So yeah, all round, I don't think there were too many negatives at all to take from the whole day.
Yeah, for sure. Just very quickly, Adam, before I let you come in, Josh Tucker asked, "How's the head?" I was out with sound down last night, and no, before any comments come in, we were not responsible for the power cut on the Barbican last evening. That had nothing to do with us. But the head is good. Adam. Adam, I want to come to you because I've got an idea of where I want Sam Down to go with his first bit of tonight's episode. Why don't you talk about everything between 0-0 and 2-2, if you want, in your segment, and then I'm going to tease Sam up for the match winner, if that's okay.
All right, that works for me. That's absolutely fine. I kind of want to pick up in terms of the way we still started the game on what Ben said earlier about the Randall JB midfield. I think that's absolutely correct. It was absolutely the right selection, and particularly against Sunderland, it needed to be. We know going into the game that they're by quite a long way the youngest team in the league, and you needed to have that dynamic midfield duo in order to not only negate them, but also offer us something going forward when we did turn over the ball. Because they're a team that I know it got a lot of quote tweets and bookmarks in the week when Rooney said they're a team you can get at, but they are. They absolutely were. If we were able to get our runners into the game, and Randall and JB were absolutely on top of that. I think if we touch on the first half, I think it would be very fair to have gone in level. And I think really we ought to have gone in level because there was a certain penalty decision that I think we're going to have a discussion on later.
Very quickly, before you go into the schematics of the penalty, why do you think it was fair to go in level at the end of the first half?
I mean, ultimately, it wasn't a game of massive chances. We negated them. I'd argue very well up until, but you compare that first half, for example, to the Stoke game where it felt like they were getting in behind every 5 minutes. A little ball through the defence or over the top was getting them in. There was none of that in the first half yesterday, and for me, I thought it was absolutely fine to go in level. If anything, with JB and the way that we put it. Or he put it just over the bar in the first half. You could argue that we had the best chance of the half, aside from the thing. So that's the first half. So we go in 1-0 down, regardless of what we're saying about it, and we will say more about it. I think we can consider ourselves slightly unfortunate to be behind. And coming out in the second half, I think a ton of credit really has to go to Rooney's way for the way that the team responded. I mean, I've made no secret of the fact that I have my doubts about Rooney in the past, but yesterday was really, really excellent managerial performance. It's so reassuring to see that we can still have that at this club. I mean, I kind of want to use an example of getting ourselves into of Sissoko's performance and how he was instructed to play and how he did respond to those instructions helped turn things around. Because there was a point very, very early on in the second half where his performance was honestly really annoying me. The one moment that sticks in mind was 50 minutes on the clock, something like that. I don't know. There's a short corner played to Sissoko. I think Patterson had just tipped Randall's shot around the post, and there was a short corner played to Sissoko, and we were absolutely with the momentum with us. And then he did his old thing of, I'm going to try and take 2 players on again, then lose it. It'll go nowhere. And it's just like, what are you doing? And from that moment on, whether he was instructed to do it, whether it was something Rooney mentioned at halftime, just getting it a bit quicker, he turned it around and was instrumental in what we were doing from there. I think I can think of 3 occasions where he's managed to actually get the ball into the area after beating his man, which is what we've all called out for. One of them, there was just an unlucky touch from Whittaker at the back post that could have been a leveler. Another one was obviously what was the leveler that ended up with Rooney with Whittaker at the back post again. We've not got that sort of striker yet. And there was another one which ultimately ended up winning us a penalty and getting us out of the game. Sissoko was the sort of player who needed to be involved in the game. And he needed to be involved in a way that had that end product, which I think we perhaps argue we haven't necessarily had up to this point for a lot of his time at the club. But yesterday was absolute different gravy from him once he got going and got the ball in the area. And let's not forget, he's almost scored, if he meant it, of course, a Finazaz at Bristol Rovers style screamer from the corner of the box that is very unlucky to hit the bar with. So it could have been even better. So that's ultimately what turned it around. As I say, I think it surely come from instruction. I think a ton of credit has to go to Rooney there for the way he stuck to his guns and just got us moving forward a little bit more and with a little bit more urgency, and it really turned things around. And you've tasked me going up to 2-2 as well. So if there's one criticism I can have, I mean, it's very hard, and I think Ben said it at the start. Having negatives here are very tricky to pick out. If there's one, I think perhaps swapping that midfield, Randall, JB, who are doing so well, and bringing on a new midfield both at the same time and completely changing it there, it didn't help us. And I felt like we kind of lost the initiative in the game at that point that led to the equaliser. But of course, both those men were still on the pitch for the winner as well. So it's hard to pick holes. And I don't want to spend too long picking holes. I spent all summer picking holes. So I just say, this is when it works, what Rooney football is to look like. And everything from the start of the game to the 2-2 to the moment that Sam's about to speak about, aside from a few unlucky moments here and there, we were right on it, and it was brilliant to see. I think you often find yourself coming out of a game with the league leaders where you've scored a late goal and you kind of think, yeah, okay, we had to ride our luck a bit. I don't think that was true at all. I think, if anything, they were lucky to be in the game by that point. And I think that's testament to just how well we put them on the back foot and how we took the initiative and drove them on to the eventual winning goal, which I'll now shut up about and let Sam take it away.
Yeah, so just to give you an idea of how tonight's going to go, we are going to come back to several little pockets of the game. I am also planning on dedicating a chunk of tonight's podcast to give the so much praise that's deserved to Wayne Rooney for yesterday's performance, because obviously, as people will realise on the podcast this year, we haven't been overly enthusiastic at times towards Wayne and his tactics. But I think tonight it is just right that we give him as much praise as we possibly can. But we will come on to that. However, Sam, it would be remiss of us, even though we're only 13 minutes in, to just dedicate some time. Let's get it. I'm not saying get it out of the way because we don't want to talk about it, but I think it's right. There was that famous commentary of Martin Tyler and Gary Neville a few years ago when Vincent Kompany smashed in an absolute worldie for Manchester City in a goal that eventually decided the title in the Premier League that year. And Gary Neville's quote was, "Where do you want your statue, Vincent Kompany?" Now, I've not watched the full match replay, but if Rob McNichol doesn't turn around and say, "Where do you want your statue, Joe Edwards?" then there's something seriously wrong. Captain Fantastic, Captain Marvel. Was that not Joe Edwards in a nutshell yesterday? The whole performance, because he was the one, even in the first half, when the press wasn't really there, Edwards was the one who was hot on his man Mundle. It wasn't his easiest game. He was up against a very tricky player, and we're going to come on to Romain Mundle a little bit later on. You might not be surprised to hear. But what a performance, and written in the script, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've said half of it for me, but I mean, just add it to the long list of incredibly big moments where he's absolutely come up clutch for this football team. Everyone, obviously, the first one everyone goes to would be the whole game, which personifies Edwards' knack of coming good at big moments. But just to name a few more, the Port Vale game where, okay, we were already promoted, but we were going for the title. We were losing at Port Vale. Randall had just equalised, but we needed a winner to be sure of the title. Joe Edwards rifles it home to put us into the lead just before half-time, and then we go on to win the game quite comfortably. The one that everyone kind of forgets for me in terms of what turned out to be a crucial goal, maybe he didn't know it at the time, was the Birmingham home game last season, whereby obviously we ended up staying up by 1 point, and it was his goal that made the difference in that one. So again, but again, even at the time, it was a big game, not for the same reason, but it was a big game in the sense that it was the first game after Schumacher's departure, and everyone was getting behind Neil and Nance. So he really rose to the occasion there. I could even add the Shrewsbury away game at the tail end of the title season with the Callum Wright winner. Easy to forget it was Edwards who equalised for us in that game as well. That game, if we hadn't have won it, would have been the first time we dropped out of the top two since October. Admittedly, we still would have had a game in hand, so we still would have had it in our hands. But if we hadn't have won that game, the psychological blow of dropping out of the top two, that would have put enormous pressure on the 3 home games. Seen a comment thing, overhead kick against Wednesday. That was quite a big game at the time. Yeah, obviously a tough opposition, and he scores a magnificent individual goal. He may not score a whole lot of goals or a whole lot of assists. Another comment saying the whole one. Yeah, I did mention that one, but yeah, that's the obvious one for sure. But the ones he gets are absolutely critical. And just when the walls were starting to close in a little bit on Wayne Rooney, I'm not saying he was in any danger of being sacked if we didn't win that game, but I just felt first half the Devonport end were getting a little bit testy, moaning a bit when we gave the ball away, which in the whole game and the Stoke game, it was all Rooney. And I just felt at times yesterday the mood was starting to turn a bit. People were starting to get a bit more angsty, get on the team's backs a little bit. I know Adam and Ben both in the Devonport, so maybe they'll agree or disagree that was happening. But that turnaround to then obviously then be pegged back after turning it around to then go up there at the other end and then get that winner. It just, again, epitomises what he's all about. Aaron has popped up in the comments with probably the only 2 Joe Edward goals that were entirely inconsequential. So thank you for that, Aaron. Although actually possibly not inconsequential, because if we had have not drawn that game, if we'd have lost it, we may not have gone up on points per game. So thank you, Aaron, for that. Absolutely huge. I'm with Adam in my general assessment of the game. It was the best we played under Rooney by a considerable margin. I think the first half, I'll hold my hands up to it. I was one of the ones who replied in the group chat to Ben saying, really? But you know what? When I think about it, I mean, the 2 other contributors here have both made very valid points, which is that in the Stoke game, they were cutting through us like a knife through butter, and something that weren't at all. So actually, Wellstar attacking side in the first half wasn't great. Our defensive side was very good in the first half. And in the second half, we got the attacking on song as well. And we had a lot of chances. We had the JB chance first half unmarked. We had the Whittaker decent chance for the goal that ended up being an own goal, but it was still Whittaker's shot that put it in that area, and he had quite a good chance of scoring. Obviously, we had the penalty, and I think we can all agree that our penalty was very much fully deserved. There's no controversy about that one at all. He completely knocks Hardie over. And obviously, we had the winning goal and a couple of other sort of half chances as well that all added up. And of course, Sissoko, which was obviously not a good chance in the sense of a good chance at scoring, but he came very close to scoring, hit the woodwork, and if he had scored, that would be right up there in the top 5 or 10 goals since I've been watching Argyle. As I seem to find a way of saying every podcast, it wouldn't be number 1 because number 1 will always be Carey at Blackpool. But that would quite possibly have had a chance of breaking the top 5 if that had gone in. And it was agonising that it didn't. It was a fine effort at goal from a player who, as Adam said, had his best game for the club, again, by a distance. I'm not going to say it was the perfect performance. I do think that at 2-1 up, we panicked a bit, sat a bit too deep, invited them onto us a bit. And I think that is probably something that will be worked on. And I do think at first half, the passing was a bit loose at times. But look, not a perfect performance, but a perfect day. That's how I would say it. Not a perfect performance, but a very good performance, much better performance, and a perfect day. Apart from
And
Somerset in the cricket. Apart from that, obviously.
yeah. Apart from the Vitality Blast final going to the wrong side of the West Country. Ben, Adam, just very quickly, is there anything you guys want to add on Joe Edwards? I mean, you know, we've spoken about Joe umpteen times in this podcast. We gave a huge talk there at the end of the Hull game last year and just epitomised where he ranked in the captains that any of us had seen at Plymouth Argyle. He's definitely up there, isn't he? And if not generations before all of us. Is there anything else you guys want to add on his performance yesterday in particular?
I mean,
go on, Adam. You go first.
Okay, I'm just gonna. Maybe it's not necessarily, strictly speaking, just yesterday, but I think it epitomises that if he wasn't already, he may well have surpassed the mark of being my favourite football player of all time. Full stop. It's I'm not of an age to fully remember or appreciate the initial drive up to the championship under Sturrock and the legends that were made there. But for me, as a player who makes me happy and who gives me these moments, I mean, I didn't think anybody would or I thought people would have a lot of struggle overtaking Graham Carey for this title. But I think Joe Edwards at this stage has definitely pipped him for all his achievements continued. Yesterday, I mean, is remarkable in many ways that here we are talking about a player who turns 34 this season, and we a couple of years ago when we first went up to the championship, it was kind of a case of, oh well, we love him, but we think we can upgrade on him right now. And we're still sitting here. We're still sitting here in a second season in the championship, and he's still putting in performances that show he belongs here. I think it's testament, actually, the way he dealt with Mundle yesterday, who I know we'll have a bit more of a discussion about. I mean, that's not an easy player to come up against. He's really shone in replacing Jack Clark at Sunderland this season, and got his goal yesterday, and is a tricky opponent. But generally speaking, aside from the point where he did break through, Edwards had his number. I think it just goes so much. Like, he's not going to keep up with every flying winger in this league physically, but what he does have, I think, more than anybody in this side or many sides, is an in-game intelligence that he can see patterns of play progressing, those key few seconds before anybody else can, and that's what allowed him to, on a number of occasions, get to the ball before his man. And when he does that, he's got the sort of engine still that can see us drive forward. And I think we saw that yesterday. And to top it all off, I mean, if we're talking about in-game intelligence, who was the man who was first on the scene after a centre back had a shot from 30 yards that was parried into the danger area? It was our right back. It's crazy to think for me that we're still sitting here, but. And after all that's happened, and from when he first joined us over 5 years ago to now, how on earth has his career taken this route? But thank goodness it has, and thank goodness that our the previous incumbent of the head coach's position didn't get his way to ship him off on deadline day in January. Where might we stand now?
Going this summer as well, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. There was a really strong rumour of Bristol Rovers this summer, I think, reigniting their interest that, for whatever reason, didn't come to pass. And again, thank goodness it didn't. His performance yesterday, I think, Joe, you may have said it, and Sam, you may have said it as well, and Ben, you might have said it as well. But it's a performance that kind of summarises his Argyle career in one game. The moments he's given us over the years, and I haven't mentioned it as well. I'll touch on as well everything that we've seen or spoken about from Edwards, the key goals. He's got a ton of goal contributions, be that goals, be that assist, in single goal victories for us. The fact that he somehow the amount of times he manages to be the differential. I don't know how he does it, but I'm going to say again, thank goodness he does. And I've just seen a comment come up. I'd love to see him as one of the coaches or on the coaching staff in the future. I think there is a pathway to that based on what we know of his contract. And I really hope so, because from what I've mentioned of his in-game intelligence and the way that he reads football matches, I think he's going to make a terrific coach one day. And if he can be an Argyle manager that makes me happy as much as he does an Argyle player, we're on for a good time.
Ben, just very quickly, the comments just come up there that he was Ryan Lowe's first signing, and it seems like a very long time ago. And when you think that really Lowe replacing Adams was really the start of this new era of Argyle. I think it sums it all up. And I'm just going to take some stats from Greens on Screen, which obviously, as we all know, as Argyle fans, it's such a great tool to have, and they do a great job on Greens on Screen. In total, across all competitions for Argyle, 228 appearances and 24 goals. He is now 59th on the all-time list of appearances for Plymouth Argyle out of 1,195. There are many more to come, as we know. You know, I don't want this. We still have so much to talk about, and I don't want this to turn into a massive Joe Edwards love
No,
fest, because here's hoping we have many more of these sorts of chats to come in the future. But it was just great to see, wasn't it? As Adam says, of all the people, when you're 2-2, you haven't won all season, you're playing the league leaders. One of your centre half takes a shot from distance, and it's your bloody right back that's following up inside the penalty area.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of the point that I wanted to make when I was going to jump in initially, was that Joe Edwards gets tired with he's hard working. And I think sometimes that's a euphemism for he's not brilliant, but he makes it work. But I think he is actually a very good footballer. But yesterday, Romain Mundle is like 11 years his junior, whatever. And if he had not been concentrating for the entire 97 minutes, would have done a lot more damage than he did. That's what sets him apart. Is he is focused and professional every game. Yes, he might make mistakes, but they're just mistakes that come from, maybe deficiency of ability. Maybe he wasn't quick enough to block Mundle's shot, but he wasn't doing the right thing. He just wasn't quick enough to get there. He never switches off. He never. I can't remember any time this season in the 4 games he's played, he made a stupid mistake. And again, the effort, the intelligence to be there to follow the ball in, as you said, and as Adam said, in injury time. That's application, that's mentality. It's not that that's the only thing that makes him valuable to the team. He's a good player, but that just adds to it, especially in a team now that's been shorn of a few of its leaders over the last couple of seasons. He really is, more and more taking the responsibility to control, to influence, to remind players to keep focused and to drive the team forward. And that's become more and more, I think, and will continue to be this season more and more valuable. He's got an elite mentality, and that's not all he brings, but that is certainly a very, very special and very rare trait to have. You don't see that down at this level very often. Players with that sort of mentality tend to only sort of exist. They push themselves to the very, very top. So we're very lucky to have someone with that amount of influence. And look, Argyle would definitely not be where they are. You can just talk about the Hull game, but as Sam eulogized, we go back a long way, and Argyle would definitely not be where they are without Joe Edwards. He's an absolute integral pillar to the, as you just brought out, from the Ryan Lowe introduction and the new era. He's been as arguably as an important, if you were to list the 5 most important people, you'd obviously include the chairman top of that list. But if you're going to pick 5 people, you'd maybe pick Ryan Lowe, Stephen Schumacher up there with the chairman. I'd argue Joe Edwards is at least 5th on that list, if not 4th, of people, of people who have been important to the rise of Plymouth Argyle over that, since that dynasty began.
Yeah, for sure. I think you could definitely include Andrew Parkinson, Neil Dewsnip, and Mike Cooper, all right up there in that ballpark. That Dan Scarr, Danny Mayer, obviously all part of double promotion. The Dan Scarr wasn't a double promotion winner, so actually him perhaps a little lower just for the fact he only had 1 promotion. But obviously, Danny Mayer, double promotion winner. Obviously, Cooper, to be fair, didn't play in the League 2 promotion season, but was so incredibly pivotal in both the promotion and the survival. But I think Joe Edwards is I would probably say 3rd behind Hallett and Schumacher, who are in some permutation the top 2. We could probably argue over which way, but that would very much be its own pod. But I think Joe Edwards really is up there for his longevity, his importance in the key games, and the way he shines as an example to the rest of the team. You can tell how much the team respect him, how much they look up to him, how much they rely on his guidance on the pitch. And Zach has popped up in the comments saying Conor Grant double promotion as well, and I'll never miss the opportunity to give Conor Grant the credit he deserves. So absolutely, he's worthy of mentioning in the conversation.
Yeah, I think we may well have just stumbled across an idea for an international break live. In America, I'm big on my American sports. They do power rankings on a weekly basis, and maybe on international
How
breaks
did I get Ryan Hardie in that? By the way, that was a big admission.
we need to be we need to be doing an Argyle Life power rankings on the hierarchy of Plymouth Argyle. I've somehow managed to, instead of closing that comment, managed to mute my own microphone. That's some achievement. So let's get into the nitty gritty of the game then, and it would be, unfortunately, to really get our fingers into this game, we're going to have to bring RefWatch in a little bit early because John Brooks and his FIFA badge played a huge role in this one. Paul Burke in the comments asks, is Joe allowed to host and do RefWatch? I don't know, Paul, but I'm going to anyway. So let's get into it then, because there are several key incidents in the game. And we're going to start off with the first goal of the match, and that was Patrick Roberts' penalty in the first half. And I think it's safe to say there are well over 600 people watching live at the moment. I don't know how many are of Mackham persuasion and how many are Janners. I think it's safe to say I'm not about to become the most popular person in the Argyle Live parish, because I'm not sure, but I think I might be the only one here who thinks that John Brooks is absolutely correct to point to the penalty spot with that first one. Why don't you lads talk us through it?
I'll have a
And
go. I'll have a go.
maybe me and you, Ben, can have a round one of discussions, and I'll take the other two on a little bit later on.
Sure. So Mumba comes from behind Chris Rigg, doesn't he? I'm not sure if he clips his ankles or not. I genuinely can't tell. I've heard it suggested he clips his ankles, but I've only seen the replay on Twitter, and obviously, it's like trying to look for a postage box to see, in terms of the quality and the size. But he puts his hand on his. Sorry, I'm reading that for the audio listeners, reading the comments on screen. He puts his hand on Chris Rigg's back, and Chris Rigg falls to the ground as if he's been shot. We're all looking for snipers. In fact, I think, Adam, you tweeted, I thought the ref was going to book him, blew his whistle to book him for simulation.
Absolutely right, yeah.
I think he makes contact, he touches him, which you're allowed to do in football. You're allowed to make contact. The only thing that, the only way the ref can give a penalty is if there's foul play or misconduct. And the only thing that would come under as a foul.
Is that the only reason he can give a penalty?
Yeah. Like, if it's not a penalty, if it's not a foul, why does he can't stop the game? So it would come, the only thing it could come under is impeding an opponent. If you look at the lists of things under Rule 12, impeding an opponent, it comes under pulling a shirt, pushing, all of those things come under impeding an opponent. Yeah, that's what you would say. Yeah. So did he impede his opponent? Was it foul play in impeding his opponent? I don't think the contact in itself impedes him. There is contact, but you're allowed to make contact as a contact sport. For it to be impeding him, he'd have to he has to change his direction. He has to influence his movement. And I don't think he does. I think Chris Rigg feels the hand and just flops, and the referee's bought it. And I think Mumba's body movement influences the referee, because he sort of puts a hand on Rigg. Rigg goes down and he almost falls because there's no resistance from him. So it looks like there's weight behind the contact. But for me, by the letter of Rule 12, that's the only thing that he can be whistled for there, and there just isn't enough. He doesn't impede Chris Rigg with that touch. That's not enough to throw a grown man to the floor.
The problem you've got, and this is why,
to be fair, it's 17. It's still not enough to throw him to the floor.
This is probably one of only two occasions tonight where I'm going to defend John Brooks, because I'm very much not going to defend him when we come on to an incident in the second half. Is that Rule 12 you've just said there, impeding an opponent, involves a push. Now, whether or not we feel the contact is enough, Bali Mumba lays hands on the back of Chris Rigg. He is putting himself in a very naive position where he is giving the opportunity to the referee to point to that penalty spot. From where I was sat, now I have to accept my season ticket seat in the ground, is 60 yards in the other direction in the top of the Mayflower towards the away fans' end. From where I looked at first view, I saw a full extension of the arms from Bali Mumba. Whether or not there was enough contact or not is another thing. And I've sent the tweet out, and somebody accused me of trying to bait everybody by doing it. If you slow it down, Mumba does extend his arms into Chris Rigg. Now, what I'm not debating is that Chris Rigg absolutely buys the contact and hurls himself to the ground. And I'm not sure he necessarily has to do it. But the problem you've got is, and this is how I am gonna defend it, is when you're running at that speed and the linesman who's on that side has his view and John Brooks has the view that he had, all they see is Bali Mumba lays his hands on the back of an opponent, and at that speed, that's all they can give. Now, look, I've seen the arguments from other people about saying if it's VAR, it's probably going to be overturned. I'm not sure it would be with VAR in this country because there was contact, whether or not you think it's minimal or not. So I can already see in the comments, I'm not going to show them all because it's not a good look for me. But unfortunately, I'm quite happy to take the rap on this, and I think the referee was right to give the penalty.
Well, I think it's brave. I think it's brave. I admire your bravery for standing up for your principles. For me, no. I mean, it's one of those where does he put a hand on him? Yes, but putting your hand on someone and pushing someone to the ground is a very, very different action. And for me, there's just nothing there. And honestly, as Ben said earlier, I think it's absolutely right in the sense that as soon as the whistle went, I thought, brilliant. He's booking him for diving here. He's not bought that. He's shown it the other way, and he's going to make sure he nips that sort of behaviour in the bud for the rest of the game. When he pointed to the spot, it took me a few minutes, not a few minutes, it took me a moment just to think, is he actually done that? Is he actually given that? I could not believe it, and in all honesty, I still can't believe it. He touches him, and I know we mentioned, it's one of those where. He gives the referee a decision to make, if you want to call it that, and the referee then makes the wrong decision in giving the penalty because of the way that Riggs thrown himself down. I mean, honestly, if it's one of those where it takes a bit of contact and you're saying, okay, well, it could be at that pace enough to knock him off balance. If Chris Riggs being knocked off balance by a touch that slight, then frankly, he needs to work on his balance because it's not enough to push anyone over, 17 years old or not. And
if that contact is enough to knock someone over, you see when the long ball goes up and the centre back and the number 9 are throwing each other around all the time. Every match you'll see it 6 or 7 times, and that grappling, and it goes either 6 to one and 6 to the other. And now I know that Rigg wasn't in contact with Mumba here, but someone initiates that contact, and the argument would be the first that whether it's the centre back or the striker, whoever grabs hold first can just flop and get a free kick. Now, if they did that, never in a million years is the ref going to say free kick because centre backs and strikers aren't given that allowance. So the fact that dark arts all over the place. Then when we're on top, their keeper has a lie down. Yeah, that was 09, wasn't it? It sort of said told the keeper to lie down, and the ref can't do anything about that. You can't blame the ref for that one, but
you can.
I just feel like if you're going to give that there,
after he scored, Patrick Roberts cut his ears to the Devonport end. I hope he enjoyed his trip home after doing that.
There was a little bit from a lot of the players actually. I thought they were a little bit. There's a little streak in a lot of the team. But I just sort of saying, if you're going to give minimal contact like that as well, you can go over and get the free kick. There will be free kicks everywhere, all over the pitch, all the time. That cannot be the minimum threshold for a push. Contact is contact, but you need it to be a push to qualify, sort of to interfere with the opponent. And yes, you can say you can give the ref the decision. The ref was fooled, but being in block 2, look, I've got no idea about the second penalty shout for Sunderland. It was down the other end of the ground, but being in block 2 and seeing that, there is no way that was a penalty in a million years.
Let's quickly move the conversation on then, because as I say, Ref Watch is going to take up a chunk of tonight. I am going to stand though with Superintendent. It's me and you alone, I think, unfortunately,
600 ain't bad.
with the referees. who are
I
referees
was Ben
the
and Adam if
decision.
there was any doubt. You probably saw from my body language, those of you watching, that I was nodding along to all of Ben and Adam's comments. But yeah, it's you can't.
Sam,
you can't.
Sam, I want to come on to you because the comment on screen, and as Ben's just alluded to, feel like there were free kicks all over the place for minimal contact. The game went that way a while ago. And if he's giving a penalty for minimal contact in the penalty box with Barley Mumber and Chris Rigg, I'd like to sit John Brooks down and find out how he comes up with a yellow card for Romain Mundle body slamming Joe Edwards to the floor. Now, I was an avid watcher of the Paris Olympic Games, and I was a keen watcher of the judo in the Paralympic Games. I didn't see moves like that in this year's Summer Olympiad. I mean, I've seen it back about 3 or 4 times today. I mean, I was furious at the time because you could see what had happened. How on earth? I mean, we're going to forget that Cornell Such was booked because that's by the by. But the fact that Romain Mundle has body slammed Joe Edwards off what was really a bit of a petty foul anyway, it's extraordinary he wasn't sent off, Sam, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I thought it was just a bit of handbags. I'm in block 1, so that was over the Linda side, so I didn't have the best view of it. But yeah, seeing it back, he really does go for him, doesn't he? He doesn't just touch him; he drags him to the floor pretty much. I thought it was one of those where they've sort of both come together. He's maybe given him a little shove, maybe got a bit of a shove back, but no, not at all. Having seen it again, he really does pretty much, yeah, like you say, body slam him. So yeah, he was lucky to remain on for sure. And I think it just shows that when you go, I think Joe Edwards even said something in his post match about Mundle that we sort of knew that you can wind him up a bit. And well, I think we were very unlucky not to, for Mundle not to have got a red card for it, because we really should have been playing against 10 men rather than 11. Yeah, thankfully we won the game anyway, but I think Mundle really should have had the proverbial early bath for that one.
Just very quickly, Sam, because I'm going to come on to the other lads about. I'm going to come back to the other lads about the penalty, if that's all right, lads. Is that going back to this incident with Mundle, and the superintendent says it here that he lost it completely. Now your side have gone one. Your side have just surrendered the lead. It's 1-1. The home crowd are up. You're then looking at your players to not give the home crowd any more of a leg up in the game, because Home Park at this point was rocking anyway. And we've seen in the past, through face of adversity, when decisions don't go our way, i.e. Rotherham last year when we didn't get the penalties and our centre forwards were being carted off to hospital, that Home Park became quite hostile. I mean, that really lit the blue touch paper on the game, didn't it? Because then all of a sudden everything was a yellow card from the referee.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was just extraordinary that he lost control of everything, Mundle. And not only that, John Brooks probably lost control of the game for about 10, 15 minutes afterwards. And there's probably a question mark whether or not he regained control of it.
Yeah, you sort of felt it was one bad tackle away from it really, really kicking off, didn't you? For a while, it just had that sense about it. It was going to turn into a really nasty scrap, and obviously, thankfully, it didn't. There were a couple of moments after that where it did nearly boil over, but not quite to the extent I feared it might. Yeah, I do think he lost control of the game. I think that there were times where he should have just taken a minute to have a chat with some of the worst defenders. I'm not quite sure why Such and Edwards got booked. I think it just shows that with Edwards, well, and with Mundle, to be fair, because he scored, that when you wind them up and what have you, they just, maybe it makes them even better, because obviously Mundle went up the other end and got the equaliser, didn't he? And Edwards come up the Devonport end and got the winner. So yeah, not much more I can say to that really. It was a fiery encounter, and as Joe Edwards tweeted after the game, there's nothing quite like it when Home Park is bouncing, and we was bouncing all the way through that second half for sure.
It certainly was. And then, as we saw so famously in the promotion-winning season, it was just wave after wave of Argyle attack. And that's a good Sunderland side, let's not forget. And for large periods of that second half, they were struggling to hold a candle to Argyle's wave of attacks. Whether or not the quality was there necessarily in front of goal, Argyle suddenly started to come forward. And Regis Labrie really did emphasise that he never felt Sunderland had any control over Argyle's wide players and the attacking threat. And then Sam talks about the referee not giving himself a moment to make decisions. I've timed this. This is how sad my Sunday has been. 1 second it took him to point to the spot for Chris Riggs' penalty in the first half. 3.5 seconds he paused for, I know I'm biased, probably the most stonewall penalty you'll see up and down the country yesterday. Adam, do you want to come in on this? I mean, Dan Ballard, he's already had a poor moment with the own goal. I mean, I say poor moment. It's a wonderful save by Patterson, and Ballard was just running back towards goal and it's hit him. But that's a complete head loss moment from him, isn't it? He's just bundled into Hardie after he failed to control the ball.
Yeah, it's so poor, and I think on this one, unlike the last one, I mean, we agree entirely. I think it's a stonewall penalty. It's one of those where I don't know, maybe what's happened with the own goal, and to be clear, Ballard's not at fault as such. The own goal, he's very unlucky, as the goalkeeper is, by the way. He's pulled off, frankly, a world-class save to tip that Whittaker shot on the bar, and it's got in. But maybe that's played on his mind, because what he was doing there, I know it was something that perhaps all of us in the crowd could see coming as Hardie tried to get himself in front and get himself to that ball. And I'm kind of hoping then they're like, oh, go on, get a touch on that and get challenged, because we'll have something here. And that's exactly what happened. If we can see it, you'd like to think that that Ballard himself might have given that some thought. He didn't. I'm glad he didn't. Definite penalty. And yeah, it it was a little bit weird that it took him a while to point to the spot. And he gave himself a bit of thinking time that perhaps he ought to have done in the first half. For the one that I think will maintain, or most of us will maintain, he shouldn't have given. But at least he got to the right decision at the end. So if he is going to emerge with a little bit of credit, at least he's got that.
Ben, Sam, throw your weight in on that and any other decision really from John Brooks up until stoppage time. I've got a bit to say about stoppage time.
Yeah,
Yes.
just a clear. Yeah, not much more to add. Just clear penalty. We'll move on to something that we might have more vibrant discussion on.
Yeah, I thought he wasn't going to give the penalty for a minute, and I was going to go absolutely ape between the penalty that was given, Mumba's supposed offence, then not sending Mundle off for what was probably foul play in rugby. It looked a bit like a spear tackle, and then to have not given that penalty. That, I mean, to be fair, if he'd not given it in a vacuum, I could kind of be like, oh, I can understand why he hasn't. Maybe he's not sure, but being Hardie's side of it in the crowd, it was a clear penalty. If he'd not given it, I think I would have gone absolutely apoplectic. And my rant on here about the standard of Premier League refereeing, let alone Championship refereeing, would have been longer than one of Joe's. Thankfully, at least he got that one right. But there were some weird decisions. Like, I mean, maybe one of you lads can clue me in. He sent. I thought it might have been a blood injury, but I didn't see him receive any treatment. He sent Gibson off for going down in the box, down in front of the Barn Park, even though the trainer hadn't come on or the physio hadn't come on to give him any treatment, which seemed a bit weird. Did either of you see what happened there?
I can't say I'm fully clued up, because I mean I'm more than happy to defend refs on occasion, like when the offside free kick was taken in our half. I was more than happy to defend that. But this one, my understanding of the laws is that if you need to go off for treatment, you need to spend 30 seconds off. But he didn't go off for any treatment. He's gone down and got back up again. So why he sent him away, I don't know. But I think it kind of links into what you just said, in the sense that there's a lot of strange decisions going on amongst the entirety of the game. I look at the thing in stoppage time, Whittaker's yellow card as well. I mean,
Yeah.
what's going on there? I mean, from my mind, he's tracked back very well and won the ball. I mean, it's not going to go down well with the narrative of some people that I've just praised the way that Morgan Whittaker tracked back, but he did, and he won the ball, and he's been punished for it, which is bizarre. Such getting booked, Edwards being booked again, very bizarre, and yeah, the Mundle thing in particular was very odd. I think it's it's one of those where it's. You can, I guess, argue that, okay, well, maybe he's just tried to keep some control of the game. Maybe he doesn't want things to boil over by getting the red card out. But I don't think there can be any complaints if he does. And yeah, I just wonder actually whether Yeah, that was part of the plan, and I know Edwards has put it out after the game that we knew we could wind Mundle up a little bit. I wonder actually, the more I think into this, whether that may have come from Rooney himself and his experiences of playing football in the past. The obvious example being the 2006 World Cup, where Portugal knew they could wind him up and got him sent off. Does he know the sort of player? Can he recognise that sort of player? I don't know. But yeah, that's a massive tangent. I just go back to what you were asking about the stoppage time. Yeah, I'm not clued up on the laws. My understanding of the laws is that sending him off when he didn't need to get treatment for however long he was off was a little bit weird. But I don't know for sure, and I'm happy to stand corrected.
You think somebody's put in the comments there saying there's now a rule that if a player goes on an injury time, they need to leave the pitch, but we need to clarify that because I'm not sure myself. I thought it was. I mean, one thing I didn't have any complaints about. I didn't really have complaints about the 7 minutes, if I'm brutally honest. There were 4 goals. There were plenty of substitutes. As Tom Harris mentions, there was also that incredible moment when Patterson goes down, clearly instructed to by Sunderland to take the sting out of the game when we were really on top. The crowd was up, and it was clear as day what the hold up was. But then for Gibson to have to leave the field of play as the clock struck 97 minutes, Gibson was instructed to leave the field of play as well. It was bang on 97 minutes.
To be fair, you can't ask your keeper to go off, can you?
It would stop these tactical injuries, Sam, when there isn't a problem with him, because he then gets up and volleys a goal kick 90 yards down the field of play.
Well, yeah, look, we all know he was trying it on, but you can't ask teams to play for 30 seconds without a goalkeeper. Come on. Maybe you could have a rule where they have to have a player off in lieu for 60 seconds. You know,
it would sort the situation out. I'm gonna go to IFAB. I'm gonna head to Zurich and have a conversation. But the point I wanted to make was that I didn't have a problem with 7 minutes. I had a problem with then Gibson having to go off as the 7th minute expired, and then for John Brooks to find the audacity to then find another 2 minutes on top of the 7 already allotted. And then there's that incredible moment at the end where Bellingham appeared at real time to be barged into the back of as he's going for a header inside the box. I have seen it back. If you think the Chris Riggs one's soft, have a look at that one at the end. That is buying and initiating contact. And we should actually just stress that obviously Ballard went down off the ball after winning the header, and it didn't look great for him as he was being treated after the full-time whistle. So he's a very good centre half, so all the best to him. But look, John Brooks eventually found the will to blow his full-time whistle, and that was 3-2. And what an incredible win it was at Home Park. Nearly 800 of you are tuning in. We're nearly at the hour mark. We've got to keep going. We've still got a few things left to get through this evening. Just a thought, lads, as we wrap up on Sunderland. They Regis Labrie was quite clear in his post-match interview, actually, that he didn't feel like that was anywhere near what he expected from Sunderland. He didn't feel like they had a great amount of control in the game. He certainly never thought they had control of our wide players. They're a good side, and at times in that first half yesterday, they showed just how good they are with the runners on and off the ball, in and out of possession and things. And not only that, they contributed to one of the finest games of football in the Championship you might see all season. And not only that, those 1,700 fans, boy, didn't they help create a great atmosphere inside Home Park yesterday.
Yeah, they were great. We saw a lot of them out on the Barbican, didn't we, Joe? They were enjoying Plymouth. I think we both said we were disappointed not to see the squad out enjoying the fruits of their win. We won't mention any names, but we saw more Sheffield United players out than Argyle players out last night, didn't we? Not saying who that was.
Certainly did, yeah.
Possibly me, but yeah, we did see a certain Sheffield United player out on the Barbican last night, and but yeah, no, fair play to them. They're obviously listening to their sports scientists and having a nice night with their feet up, rather than on the booze and the Barbican with sore heads there like I've got. So fair play to them for resisting temptation. But Sunderland fans were, as the question said, were there as well. They made a lot of noise, got behind their team, and they yeah, every one of them I spoke to were absolutely sound, and they were enjoying Plymouth, weren't they? I saw a tweet going around today saying, "I hope Plymouth go up with us. The Barbican's amazing," and I think stay up with you might be perhaps more realistic for both teams. But with all due respect, I'm not sure Sunderland will last the distance and go up, and I'm certainly don't think we're going to go up either. So I think we will be in the same league as Sunderland again, but we might be in the same league as Sunderland again next season, but it won't be in the Premier League.
As Sam said, we did see a few of them out on the Barbican last night. I had a good conversation with a family in the Maritime Inn last night, actually, and they were all very positive about Plymouth, about home park, about the game. And Ben, one thing that has struck us, I think, on social media, and there's been a couple of comments earlier on in the show tonight, is actually just how gracious the Sunderland fans were about the result yesterday. It's very easy when you've been beaten 3-2 with a last-minute winner to throw the toys out of the pram, but actually they were a fairly respectful bunch and realised just how the game went in the end.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Every fan base has its salty, toddlers. We're the same. We've got plenty of them. You see them.
We've got John
on Twitter. Yeah, the doyen of that. Yeah, don't mention his tweet to Ali Maxwell. Yeah, I think there's a mutual respect between the two clubs. Obviously, Sunderland are a much bigger club than Argyle historically. Crowds of 40,000 for, even some points last season, I think, and still get great numbers through the gates. But I think that kind of long travel distance and that there's a mutual respect built on the sort of the away day, the loyalty. I think that they acknowledge the loyalty of the Green Army and the travel that we make, and we reciprocate that. And I also think there's quite a similar attitude to football, that kind of like something's always going to go wrong kind of feeling. They've lived in the shadow of Newcastle United for a number of years, even though Newcastle United haven't sort of really won anything. It's always been the more successful of the two teams. That we know they were relegated down to League One, etc. They've suffered. They're not a pompous fan base, or certainly not as pompous as some of the other fan bases that we've come across in the Championship, who have had better days and are now swimming in our waters. So yeah, a really good bunch of fans on the whole. Definitely one of the best ones in the Championship. And it is, like Sam says, it would be nice to, not that I wish them no promotion, but be nice to sort of have the two games again next season.
As mentioned, fair play to the 1,700 who made the trip down to Devon last night. Hope they got back safe, and we will do it ourselves on the 25th of January, I think it is, when I'm sure there definitely won't be any snow or minus temperatures around at the Stadium of Light. I look forward to my second ever trip to the Stadium of Light after New Year. So unless there's anything else from the three of you, I think. Oh, I've forgotten. Wayne Rooney. Let's talk about that masterclass, because Regis Labrie has outwitted all the teams they've played so far. But Adam, that yesterday was, I mean, I'm not going to say it's as good as you get from Wayne Rooney, because obviously the first half wasn't overly impressive as in terms of how good the second half was. But crikey, that's how you react to the situation and get the best out of your players, as that second half proved, wasn't it? We've got to give Rooney a huge amount of praise.
We absolutely do. 100%. I think it kind of links back to a lot of what's already been said, with the way that he got the selection right, the way that he got his halftime team talk right. It's one of those where I think it's a managerial performance for someone who's still quite young, let's say, in his managerial career, who we really could, in an ideal world, look back on this as a turning point, because I think we've all agreed it was by a long, long way the best performance of the Rooney era to date. It's arguably, I mean, I didn't follow his Derby career very closely, and I don't think you can read much into what he did in MLS, but it's arguably the best performance any team has put in under Wayne Rooney's management. And I think it's testament to how much he's picked up, and the way that he did manage to get his selections right, the way that he did manage to outwit a manager who's beaten all comers so far this season, and and sent them back up north with no points. It's encouraging. I think there's obviously a natural inclination to try and temper expectations a little bit. It's not going to be like that every week. Of course, it doesn't have to be like that every week. The club with our ambitions, we don't need to win every game 3-2 swashbuckling football. If we pick up enough points under Rooney, then I think we'll all be very happy. But it's the fact that that's how it can be. And Joe, you make an excellent point about the first half. Well, it can be even better than that, and it perhaps will be even better than that at some stage. I think that has to be encouraging, and hats off to be fair. I will always go back, I guess, to the caveats. I know I've criticised in the past the decision. There's still obviously a lot to prove on either side of the argument, but you can never ever doubt the man's commitment. The fact that he's one of very few who. He doesn't need this job. He could be off doing punditry, sunning himself wherever he wants to if he wanted to. So he's not. He really wants to make this a success. And yesterday, I think, was the first indication that many of us had that actually, if we can add some more consistency, if we can get those patterns of play worked on even more, as we obviously have done in the last couple of weeks, it could just be a success. Depending on how you define it. Was it the perfect performance? Yeah, of course it wasn't the perfect performance. We've got bits to work on, but that's okay because we can work on them, and it gives us something to build on. So, yeah, you're not going to see anybody turn from Rooney lover to Rooney hater overnight, nor are you going to see anybody go the other way. But I think yesterday, for us all, I'll use the word again, it was hugely encouraging. And if we can continue to put teams on the back foot like that, and still get the chances, because we had very similar against Stoke where we looked nice and didn't really create anything. Yesterday against a better side, that was very different. If we can keep doing that, maybe there's some success here yet. Hats off to the guy.
What it has done.
Two things.
Yeah, just very quickly, Ben. What it has done is it's given us benchmark performances, isn't it? We have a benchmark for you can't go any lower than that. And now yesterday, we have a benchmark of, right, that's the level we want you to be at. That's the level that as Argyle fans, we can only ask for because they left everything out there in that second half yesterday. They emptied the tanks for the club and it proved by scoring our 94th minute winner.
Yeah. And I really felt for Rooney given the first 4 games because he was embarrassed on national team. I mean, his debut couldn't have gone any worse, could it? And whoever, I think it was partially his fault. I feel like he hadn't given the players the direction maybe that they needed, but that's a horrible start to his time. And then he gets players making stupid decisions, limiting his sort of like his ability to control a game. Then we have some, and throughout all the games, there's some really bad refereeing decisions, and he just deserves a break. And then when Mumba's when the first penalty was given, I just felt like, when is I feel so much for Wayne Rooney that he's just not getting any breaks, and he kind of had to earn them. Yes, there were lots of little sort of things that could have gone either way, but he was the one who apparently, according to the report, said it at halftime, we can do this, put the rocket up the proverbial, and sort of gave them the belief to go out and do it. And I think he hats off that he's persevered, as you said. Doesn't need to be here, Adam, but that's real credit to him. There's clearly togetherness and buy-in from the players. But the other thing I wanted to say about it is he's parroted, I'm happy with the squad. I'm happy with this squad. I think this squad can do what I need it to do. And the rest of us, well, not the rest of us, but a lot of us have looked at it and said, I really don't think it can do what you're asking it to do. And do you know what? Yesterday, as I said at the very outset, and Adam's just sort of repeated, I think that maybe not excellently, but to a good enough degree, this squad can. And that's a credit to Rooney that he's that shows a level of understanding and perception that was beyond a lot of us, myself included. And so therefore that gives me a lot of confidence, or a lot more confidence, hope that actually he's got something that he hasn't been able to display yet. So that I would like to make another point later before we go on Gibson, and Zuch as well has been mentioned there. But yeah, just to wrap up on Rooney, I think he really he's had some really bad breaks so far this season, as well as his own culpability. I think he really deserved something to go well, and to get that first win under his belt now. I mean, if we hadn't have won that, even if it had been a draw, I think we'd be 23rd. going into a bad run of games. It's really good for him to have got that monkey off his back. And I think now we can sort of, there's a level to go at, as you suggested, Joe. We've got the benchmarks now. We can, we now know what we're going to be bouncing between, and it should be entertaining.
I'm sure we all look forward to listening into national-based podcasts and several breakfast show sports radio broadcasters talking about Plymouth Argyle's fantastic win yesterday, although I think we probably won't be hearing that. Does anyone else, I'm just mindful that we're on for 65 minutes now, and we do have to get questions. Does anyone else want to throw anything else in about yesterday's game?
We're not doing that thing, are we, where we each pick a player who deserves a bit of praise from yesterday? Because I've got so many we've spoken so much about the macro level of what a big win it was in the context. I feel we've not maybe spoken enough about how well some of them played. So I just want to give, I'm going to give two, but I'll try and limit it to a minute per player, if I may. First one is, I feel it would be remiss not to mention the man of the match for me was actually not Joe Edwards. I think it was Barley Mumba, especially considering that I think the penalty was not a penalty, so I'm not counting that against him. I think he was brilliant all through the game, overlapped with Sissoko superbly second half. I think that is the best game we've seen him play for Argyle away from wing-back. I think we've probably seen him play better in his best position, but in a back four system, that's the best we've seen him play for Argyle. He absolutely knew what the system needed of him. Defensively, he barely put a foot wrong, apart from the contentious incident. Going forward, he fed the ball through the channels well. He overlapped superbly for Sissoko many times. And the other one is Ryan Hardie, and not just because his nana is possibly watching. Hello, Sandra, if you are. If not, hope you're catching up later. But yeah, I think with all due respect, I think Obafemi had quite a poor game. He wasn't really in it at all. Not rolling him off. I'm sure he'll have many good games for the club going forward, but I don't think he was really in the game. Hardie came on and immediately was better. Look, it did help Ryan Hardie that the players around him were also playing better. We were getting more to him. But I just think the way Hardie runs the channels, and often it is to no reward, because maybe it's he's not, making quite the right runs, or maybe it's the fact that what's happening behind him is so poor that he will be running and not getting much reward for it. Yesterday, we saw how well it works out with him running the channels, with him stretching defenders, with him opening the gaps for others to play in. And of course, easy to forget that he won the penalty with a great bit of control, great bit of anticipation to follow up on the mistake of the defender. And then he slotted the penalty away superbly. Very good penalty. Keeper went the right way, but still wasn't getting there, was he? It was a brilliantly struck penalty. And of course, the trademark celebration in front of the Devonport end. So yeah, really good to see. Hopefully he can use that confidence to push himself on now and get a couple in open play, particularly if the players around him are playing better as well. And I think that was just about a minute per player. I'd love to talk about Hardie and Al Hajj and about Cornell Such and Dan Grimshaw. I think all of those are well worthy of praise, but I am a little conscious of time, so I'll hand back to Joe.
I'm going to have 30 seconds on Lewis Gibson, because I feel like he flies under the radar. I think I can count on one hand.
Not in my eyes, he doesn't.
The number of bad... yeah, exactly. Yeah, Joe was there from the very start. He's driving the bus. He's driving the fan club bus. But, I think I can probably count on one hand the number of bad games he's had for Argyle. I probably don't need my thumb either. And he's just so consistent. And now we've got Zuch alongside, and we look like we could have a really decent defensive pair in there. But it meant a lot to him as a he's Durham lad, isn't he? To win yesterday, I think. But just I don't think any people disagree about players like Mumbo, Whitaker, Sissoko. Some people will say, they're one-trick ponies, or they're this or that. How many Argyle fans have you ever heard say Lewis Gibson isn't any good? Maybe I've seen one or two comments online, but I think that just is testament, because Argyle fans can have a disagreement over what colour green Argyle green is, but I don't think hardly anybody would tell you. I can't think of any seen comments that say Gibson's no good. He's universally lauded here, and I think that he probably deserves a bit more public praise for what he does. He sometimes, maybe rarely has a 10 out of 10, but he never has worse than a 7 out of 10 in my book, and a 7, 8, sometimes a 9 out of 10. And that's incredible for this level, really. Another player who I think that when he goes will be will be sorely missed. A bit like Sonny Bradley, I don't think a lot of people knew what we had until he wasn't here, and I think he's another player in that mould. Quietly goes about his business very, very well. Great professional.
And we finally found that, hopefully, if it isn't a flash in the pan, we finally found the centre-back partnership who's close to his level, with all due respect to Dan Scar and Pleggy, who I think are a bit below his level. I think Such looks a real upgrade. Very clever pickup from the recruitment team. Very good signing by the look of it so far. He had a couple of hairy moments in his first game he played, but he's getting up to the speed of the league brilliantly. Very strong, imposing, wins the ball in the air and can play out. And it was his brilliant shot that, with so much power behind it, that Patterson, probably the keeper, Patterson, will feel a bit annoyed that he didn't push it aside. But there was so much power behind it, he sort of felt he had to, I guess, push it back out to Joe Edwards, who
I think they call that swaz nowadays. I think that's what the kids call that.
I must say, I have had it messaged to me that the keeper actually went the wrong way for Hardie's penalty, which is why I should not be doing other stuff on my phone when I'm watching the extended highlights back. But even so, it was struck so well that I think even if he had gone the right way, I like to think he wouldn't have got there. But it's a very well struck penalty.
Adam, can I offer you 30 seconds about Cornell Such? Because I actually personally would have given him the man of the match yesterday if it wasn't going to be Joe Edwards. I thought he was excellent, and the pair of them dealt really well with a tricky centre forward in Mayenda, who I'm not sure we saw enough. We didn't see his best game yesterday in a Sunderland shirt, but as the lads have alluded to, we may well have stumbled across a gem here, haven't we?
Early signs are impressive. They really are. I'll take my 30 seconds. I kind of agree with everything's already been said. It's a tricky side to come up against with Sunderland, not just with Mayenda, but the way that their wingers get involved in the game, the way that they can interchange and cause all sorts of trouble. And I'll go back to what I've said before on Such, in the fact that he's come to a new country. He's only 22. He's getting experience in the highest level of his career, I have no doubt, for the first time. And he's never looked out of place at all. He's slotted in right at home straight away, which is really, really encouraging. And if he can keep that going, I think, it's always standard temper expectations a little bit. He is, let's not forget, only 22. He may need to find a bit of consistency. He may have a poor game here and there, but at the level he's at right now, if he can find that most of the time, if not necessarily all the time, he's a really good pickup. And it's another one of those where hopefully, if he reaches the levels that it looks like he can, he'll be another asset on our hands, because we've already got Gibson in the centre back position, who I think if he were to go would cost many millions. And Such we've picked up for 400,000 or so, I think it was from Hungary. And if he reaches the same level of Gibson, obviously he's a multi-million player too, if we ever reach that level. So it's I'm not suggesting we sell him straight away. Please don't clip that up. But it's a nice position to be in, and it's a nice, it's a nice place to be, and a nice problem to have if we ever get there. But the fact that we're already talking in these terms is obviously testament to how well he's done. I think he's been brilliant.
For sure. Right, we've been going for an hour and 15. We do have some questions to rattle through. And then we've got a couple of things to plug at the end of tonight's episode. So the first one, actually, do it in roles reverse. Christopher Voles says, just joined, is this another naming random player show? This isn't another naming random player show. However, thank you to the hundreds of you who joined the team last weekend doing that program. And we can confirm we'll be back to do it all again in October, because it went down so well. So we look forward to coming back.
As well as the My Argyle Life of one of the players who was mentioned on that very show, which will be dropping in the October break.
There you go. There you go. A My Argyle Life with somebody who was mentioned last week's show. If you want to be an anorak and you haven't seen last week's show, now's your time to go back and make some notes. Let's get on with some questions then, and then we'll get on with it. We'll try and keep the questions to minimal answer time if we can, because obviously we've already gone on for so long. Alex James Ward asks, Ben, which stand would be best for the Joe Edwards statue?
I would like to see it atop the Lyndhurst, so that it could be be visible from the Mayflower. The other thing you could do is stick it on the little terrace where the hospitality lounge is, or have it on a little plinth there, so it stands up, with the arms spread wide from Port Vale, just so he's visible above the just at the lower tier of the upper Mayflower. That would be the lower seats, the lower Mayflower, with his arms spread out over the pitch, asking for adulation. That would also look quite good. But genuinely, an all-time legend for the club. Certainly in my time watching this, I can think of very few that sort of stand above him, if any at all. Definitely is going to be one of those who gets, when they invite him back to do a draw, if he's not here managing, it's going to be sort of like the semi-final against Man City, isn't it? They're going to save him for the absolute top draw ties. He's going to be a cult hero for many. When my kids grow up, that he's going to be the one that they talk about, like I talk about Frio, etc.
I've got a shirt. Yeah, I've got a shirt here somewhere. I was hoping to show it to you. I won it in a competition once at Wincanton Racecourse in Somerset, and it's a signed shirt of the day that Yeovil Town played Manchester United in the FA Cup, when Jose Mourinho took his side to Hewish Park. The Yeovil captain that day was Joe Edwards, and the Manchester United captain, you can probably guess who that was. So it just shows Joe's longevity and the wonderful career he's had. And I'm quite an emotional character anyway. I shed a tear or two on Friday when I watched the final ever Grand Tour. I can confirm that when Joe Edwards leaves the football club, I will be a blubbering wreck. However, if plans aren't already underway to give him some sort of, can you give a testimonial to somebody who's only played 5 years, but they're about to reach the top 50 appearance holders for the club? I don't know, but he deserves something special. Couple of questions that we're going to come to in a second. Alex is on again. So we'll come to you, Adam, on this one. How did Hardie Al Hajj look for those who didn't make it to the game, or haven't seen the game?
Yeah, and a lot of positive stuff. I think he's one of those that I was very excited for when he joined, and he's one where I continue to be excited. I think maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Al Hajj who kind of set the wheels in motion by speeding up the tempo and getting the ball across to Such, who got a shot away for Edwards' goal. So he's already getting himself involved. He already seems to have an understanding of what he needs to do, and so far he's doing it. 20 minutes or so in, but
he had a lovely little flick, he had a lovely little back heel flick to Mumba as well, wouldn't it? Or that then set him moving forward down that left wing. And then I think that was the same flowing move that the ball came back across goal. It opened up for him and he sliced his effort wide. And it was only just after coming on, and I think that would have been a perfect way to mark.
It shows a bit of confidence as well, doesn't it? So it's another one to be encouraged by. This move's always interested me, because I think going into deadline day, and I think we all appeared on the. Oh no, Joe, you might not have appeared on the deadline day stream. I think I'm mixing it up with the last one when you had your tie on. But yeah, we on deadline day, it was always a case of we were linked with Al Hajj, we were linked with Michael Baidoo as well for what appeared to be, still got it. I love it. For audio listeners, Joe's got his tie out. So do scroll back to an hour 18 in so you can see it in all its glory. Him and Baidoo, wasn't it, that we were linked with? And Baidoo looked like he would cost a significant amount more than the fee that was quoted for Al Hajj. But all the stats seem to suggest that, at least in the last season, relative to their level, that Al Hajj was the better player. So it was a curious one. Maybe it was just all a smokescreen or agent talk in the end, and we ended up getting the man we wanted to. And that wouldn't surprise me, because right now, the man we wanted to get and the man we did get, looking pretty good.
He certainly is. Next question, I'm going to sort of tie two together, if that's all right. This one says, do you think we're getting the best out of Sissoko or both wide players for that matter? And Stevie Vaughan says, Sam, this one's for you. Are we playing the best formation to get the best out of our players? I would argue yes, but then I'm slightly biased because for the last 12 months I've been campaigning for a 4-2-3-1 system. What do you think?
Look, I think the best we've looked in this league, with the benefit of retrospect, was the 4-3-3 under Schumacher first half of last season. We really absolutely blew away some teams playing that. However, do we have the squad for a 4-3-3 at the moment? not really, because the only actual central midfielders we have are Randall, who I like, Houghton, who I do like, but isn't, an absolute premium top-end player for this league. JB, who I'm not entirely sold on in truth, and Adam Forshaw, who I'm really don't think is currently of the level of fitness anymore required, and I hope he proves me wrong. So central midfield is not where we're stacked with our best players. You could play Al Hajj as a kind of advanced CM, like we did with Azaz, and just maybe have like Houghton deep with Rooney. With Rooney, I've done the same with Adam than Rooney with Randall and Al Hajj either side. You could do that and then have just Whittaker and Sissoko as the wingers. So you could make it more of a 4-3-3, but I got the sense from Al Hajj that he's a number 10, plain and simple, in a way that Advance was a number 10 who could play as an advanced CM. I got the sense of Al Hajj, he's just a flat-out number 10. So as much as I think the 4-3-3 under Shuey was the best we've been, as much as we did have some very good performances with the 3-4-3 under June Snip, and of course Schumacher briefly played 3-4-3. It's easy to forget that the 6-2 win against Norwich was a 3-4-3. So as much as those other two formations have brought us some success, yeah, you know what? I think a 4-2-3-1 probably is the best we can get from this squad. It's maybe not the route I would have gone down with the recruitment. I would have probably tried to plan for 4-3-3 and brought in a couple of top quality CMs. But I think with the squad we have, yeah, I would say it probably is. Certainly, I think it's better now that it's more of a distinctly 4-2-3-1 as opposed to a 4-4-2. I think having the second striker become more distinctly an ACM as opposed to a second striker, and having the wingers become more specifically wide attacking midfielders have added more flexibility in those early stages of 4-4-2. Certainly at the awful display on the opening day, the complete lack of flexibility between the midfield and the attack was a problem. So I'm glad that Rooney, for all the criticism rightly thrown at him by Birmingham fans about not adapting whilst he was there, has adapted at least to that small extent of making it a 4-2-3-1 as opposed to a 4-4-2. So my long-winded way is probably saying yes, it probably is the best formation we can do right now.
Yeah, I would probably agree. Not going to spend too long, unfortunately, on this, Chris. Have we improved our throw-in routines? Kind of. I'm a big advocate to get Cornel Such's long throw involved a little bit more that we saw in one of his earlier games. I think that would be quite interesting to see that unleashed. We've got just 2 questions to go, and then we've got a couple of plugs to come. This one's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, I suspect. To you, Ben, how was the XG? You're on mute. You're on
Of course I
mute.
am. It's because
There
of all
we
the
go.
noises I make when I in the background. So you'll forgive me for leaving myself on. I was trying to sort out the predictions PowerPoint in the background too. The XG was pretty good, I believe. It's certainly as good as nearly as good as Sunderland's, or about the same. But again, I'm more pleased with the fact that we had 2 big chances. Of course, the penalty was one of those, but we look much more dangerous. I think, if you take the the stats aside, we definitely, the chances we created, they were still in like 6 in the box, which was my lament. Thanks, Joe, for the Zeds. My lament against Stoke, but we looked a lot more dangerous, didn't we? The interchange with Mumba coming in off the flank, he looked electric coming in off the flank. He didn't get his Huddersfield moment, but he almost reproduced something of that ilk like he did in the opening game last season, playing some lovely little 1-2s with Sissoko, with El Hajj at different times. We certainly looked, and that was even before El Hajj came on, that we were looking dangerous too. So, and again, like with Stoke, although the manager lamented we weren't doing well, actually we made more out of the chances. So the XG on target was better than the XG, which basically means we were making more of the shots than we ought to have. So again, the players are finishing quite clinically. If we can keep that up, we should do quite well this season, if we can be as dead-eyed as we have been.
Yeah, for sure. Last questions from Aaron. How many are we going to beat West Brom by? 6, 7, 8? We don't know. But if you do want to find out what our thoughts are of the West Brom game, tune in later in the week, because Ben, that way, will be back with another scouting report as we get closer to the weekend. So do stay tuned for them. They've been really good watching, actually. I have to say, I really enjoyed the Sunderland one before this weekend's game. So do tune into the scouting report later in the week. However, now becomes, I hate to say it, a period of the podcast where I get embarrassed even further rather than just my views on the first penalty, because Ben is now going to take us through the update to the Green and White podcast predictions challenge. So do stay tuned if you want to take the mick out of me. But Ben, over to you.
Thanks, mate. I don't know if you can. Oh, there we go. That's my screen. Let's start. Can you hear me? Can someone confirm that
We
you can hear
can.
me?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, the idea behind this is that we all predict each calendar month the scores. This was the August month here amongst the hosts that can take part, and the loser gets some really embarrassing public forfeit. I didn't get to go through the rules because I crashed out last time. So you get a point for a correct result, 2 points if you get the correct result with the correct goal difference, and 3 points for the exact score. And you also get 5 points for guessing the total points for the month. So if you've predicted 2 wins and a draw and a loss, 7 points, you'd get 5 points if the team gets those 7 points. But you get minus a point for every point you're out. And anybody not submitting the predictions before the first kickoff of the month automatically gets the worst score of the round, minus 5 points, which is to keep the lads on their toes because they're really lazy about getting these things in. And the loser, as we say, faces a forfeit to be determined. We're not quite sure what it is. We were thinking maybe trying to book the first mascot duty of the season. Be good to see Sam Down taking a penalty against Pilgrim Pete and holding Joe Edwards' hand, but we're not quite sure yet. We'll work out. We welcome suggestions from the listeners. So these were our predictions for the first month. Argyle score first in green, just to avoid confusion, with the total number of points. John did incredibly well, getting 3 results right. These were the actual scores that you can see under the top window. So these are the points that everyone got. I got 1 point for getting the Stoke result right. Finn got 2 for getting the Stoke result and the goal difference. But John, of everybody, had an absolute flyer at getting the 3 of the results correct, and Sam got 5 points as well, which leaves us with this as the overall scores. And this is the first table. John and Sam out in front, Graham and Joe languishing at the bottom of the table, with the rest of us playing catch up. So they're the ones to worry. Although this month's predictions have come in already, and John and Graham already banking 2 points each, predicting a win by 1 goal each. So Graham's got himself off the foot of the table and left Joe languishing on his own down there. So Joe, Joe's going to have to turn it around or start hoping that we lose 2-0 in the next 2 games, which would be an awful conflict of interest. Otherwise, Joe looks like he might be the one holding Joe Edwards' hand on the first home game next season. But we will see. A long way to go yet. So that's the current update. John is going to be just unbearably smug if things keep going the way they are. So let's hope that he gets a few more wrong. But yeah, that's it, lads. That's the update so far. These are the current standings. John and Sam out in front. But after yesterday's result, John's stretched his lead. Joe's been left on his own on 2 points on the bottom.
An outrage. It's an absolute outrage. And if you are going to be sending in suggestions for the public forfeit, please be kind, because I really don't want my predictions to come true this month. I quite happily take no points for the rest of it. But yeah, thanks, Ben, for the predictions challenge, and I look forward to seeing what suggestions come in over the course of the next few months. So we do invite suggestions for that forfeit. No, this isn't a closed shop. We would encourage the interaction on getting your suggestions in. I think that's it, lads. As I say, we're not previewing West Bromwich Albion. You can catch the scouting report in midweek. Sam, you look like you have some.
Yeah, I mean, I like having a little chat about it, like we've done the other games, or we're not mentioning it at all.
I don't think we're mentioning it at all. I think that's what Supreme Leader Aaron has said. He said, "Don't bother, we're having a scouting report." So, there you have it. I don't want to talk about it because you've seen my predictions, and I don't want them to come true. But you can join a couple of us who are here tonight. I think next Sunday. Actually, I think I'm back in the chair again next Sunday, or if not, I'll be in one of these squares here. So yeah, do join us. Over 1,000 of you have tuned in this evening to watch tonight's Green and White podcast special. As mentioned, thank you for your continued support of the podcast, and do get involved with the shows as we progress. We do have several really exciting My Argyle Lives to bring you. As Sam hinted at earlier, we recorded one this week with somebody who may or may not have been mentioned in the international break, naming random players special. So that's really good fun by all accounts, and well worth your time. We've been going for 90 minutes. John Brooks did signal an extra 7 minutes, but I'm not going to play them. They are a maximum of 7 minutes. This time it's a minimum one. This is absolutely not happening while I'm at the bottom of the podcast. The predictions challenge from JB Jana Bay. Forfeit wearing the Exeter mascot costume in the Devonport end. That is not happening. Absolutely not. I'll quite happily have to do a penalty against Pilgrim Pete on this pitch, but I'm not wearing an Exeter City costume on the home part turf. Lads, if you've not got anything else to impart, I think we'll call that a night for this week. It's been an
Well done,
absolute
mate. Thank you.
pleasure to bring you another live of the Green and White podcast brought to you by Argyle Life. I'm Joe. Stay tuned to all our channels for some more exciting updates coming in the future weeks. That was it. We have finally got a win under our belts in the Championship under Wayne Rooney. From all of us at Green and White, enjoy the week. On to West Brom.